All right. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to have us again today after last week's discussion. So, as our culture has been, we'll begin with a brief presentation, after which we can share our knowledge and our experience on the topic. So this week we are talking about Trench Safety Standard Week. So this is an annual event that happens between 6th and 20th of every month of June, specifically in the US. So this standard week is an awareness program that is used to create awareness about high risk and fatalities associated with trench excavation and activities. So we are joining in the celebration and in propagating this awareness to increase the awareness about hazard risk associated with trench excavation activities. So let's look at how it began. It's celebrated every June from 16th to 20th. So for this year, 2025, is between 16th and 20th of June, 2025. And it started from OSHA and in collaboration with National Unity Contractors Association. So they do this celebration every year through Eastern National Trench Week stand down. And it started from far back as 2014 to 2015. The first stand down happened in 2015. And since then, it has been a yearly event. It has been an annual event whereby specific time is mapped out by every contractor or every employer to discuss about hazards, risk associated with trench excavation and look at the statistics of how many incidents or fatality-related incidents associated with this trench or excavation activity. So during this stand down is a period whereby the job is temporarily hot. People keep their tools, sit and discuss about the way forward, how to do the job safely and how to prevent injuries associated with work with excavation and trenches. So that is what this celebration is all about. So the goal of this celebration is to ensure that employers, they hold down a voluntary stand down at their job sites during a specific day of the week. There's no specific day. It's not mandatory that it will be done every day, but for the month of June, between this 16th to 20th of this year, it's expected that every employer must have stood down for a particular couple of minutes to discuss about the way forward on risk associated with activities that has to do with trench and excavation. So the event is aimed at training the workers, letting them know what the protective systems available, the safe access and egress, and the role of competent persons. So these are some of the discussions that goes on during National Trench Stand Down Week. So let's look at some of the definitions before we go further. What is an excavation? According to OSHA, excavation means any man-made cut, either cavity or a trench or a depression that is made on the surface of the earth and is formed by earth removal. So this is what we define as excavation. Now, how do we define trench? Trench is a narrow excavation which is made below the surface of the ground, of course. And in general, depth of trenches is not supposed to be greater than its width. And the width of that trench is not supposed to be more than 15 feet or 4.6 meters. Okay, so that is what qualifies any excavation as a trench. If the width of that excavation is not more than 15 feet, it's lower than 15 feet, or it's lower than 4.6 meters, we'll refer to it as a trench. But any excavation that is wider than that, you can no longer refer to it as a trench. It's an excavation. Okay, now trench is a type of excavation. So that is one of the points that we need to clearly point out. That trench is not existing on its own. It's a type of excavation, but it has a dimension that is not wider than 4.6 meters in width. So that is what qualifies any of such cavity as a trench. So having laid down that definition, let's go into some of the statistics that made this activity look scary, especially in US. Okay, now these statistics, I've put a link here where I got my figures from. Okay, from cpwr.com. Okay, so it has given us a laydown of the number of fatalities that has been recorded from 2017 up to 2023. And these fatalities are related to trench collapse or trench-related activities. So look at the figure. In 2017, 24 fatalities was recorded. In 2018, 13 fatalities was recorded. In 2021, in 2019, it was recorded 21 fatalities. In 2020, it was 18. 2021, it was 15. 2022 is 39. 2023 is 8 fatalities. So these are people, not just a number that we are counting. These are not people that are killed as a result of collapse or as a result of activities related to working inside trenches or excavations. So that is one of the reasons why National Trench stand down is put in place to re-echo these figures, to re-echo these occurrences, so that people will be aware that there are high chances of death when somebody is working in excavation, or when somebody is carrying out activity in trenches, so that the workers will be aware of the risk associated with the activities, and they are aware of the control measures that should be in place. And when they are not in place, they can raise alarm or raise a question why it is not in place. So this is the statistics, and based on these statistics, we all identify that the risk factor is very high, and the rate of fatalities is also very high. So there is need for everyone to add to the voice and ensure that everybody is aware of these figures and the risk associated with excavation activities. Okay, so having looked at those statistics, let's look at some of the hazards associated with trench and excavation activities. The first hazard is caving. Trench can cave in or trench can collapse. The worst of the trench can collapse if the soil is unstable, if the soil is too moist, if it's too watery due to rain or maybe due to underground waters. If there are nearby vibration, maybe from backfilling activities or from excavation. So if there are vibrations around the trench area, it can lead to caving or collapse. If there are movement of machineries or movement of equipment generating vibration around that trench area, it can lead to trench collapse or trench caving. If there is inadequate protective system around that trench, it can also lead to trench caving or trench collapse. So this is one of the hazards associated with trench activities. The other one is falling. Somebody can fall into the trench if it's not properly protected, if there are no barricades, there are no warning signs, if people are walking close to the edge of the trench, and if that area is slippery and there is inadequate protection, on that around that trench excavation, so people can fall in there, and it's a very high risk. Then another one is load or objects falling inside excavations or trenches. When people are walking inside a trench and materials, loads fall from top to inside, it can lead to crushing injury, it can lead to head injury, it can cause a whole lot of injuries. So this is another form of hazard that we also need to put up control measures in place to ensure that there is no debris falling from the top to inside the trench or excavation. Another hazard is hazardous atmosphere. As a trench gets deeper, it's exposed to all forms of gases, all forms of hazardous environment, okay? And somebody going inside there is at risk of suffocation, it's at risk of asphyxia. A lot of things can happen to the person. So this could be due to poor ventilation because of underground utilities that are in those areas, and maybe because of combustion sources that is nearby. So these are what could cause hazardous atmosphere inside the trench excavation. Now, the other hazard is striking underground utilities. While you are opening the floor or when you are digging, there's possibility of striking underground utilities like electric cables, telephone cables. So this is also another hazard that needs to be adequately controlled. Contact with heavy equipment. As the excavation is ongoing, the heavy equipment can get in contact with the workers, maybe spotters, flagmen, people who are helping in that activity. So this is also another hazard that we should have control measures in place for. Another hazard is access and egress issues. As trenches, there's possibility of having narrow access, there's possibility of having narrow egress. So this is another hazard that we should also have proper control measures for. Another one is hazardous materials. So in that location, there could be unidentified history of contaminations. Maybe there could be leakages of oil, leakages of maybe chemicals that have leaked inside the soil and during the excavation, so it exposes the workers to hazardous materials. Now, there could also be flooding. During excavation, there could be sudden flooding. Underground water could suddenly start coming up and people can get drowned. That is also another hazard associated with excavation activity. Then structural instability of nearby buildings. Due to that excavation, the buildings nearby or structures nearby can become unstable. And if no adequate measure is in place, it can fall and also cause a whole lot of injuries to the workers. So these are some of the hazards associated with trench excavation. Now let's look at how we can control them. What are some of the available control measures? These are not the all, but let's start with these ones. The first one is we should do adequate site assessment and identify the hazards. It could be risk assessment, it could be JSA, but there should be adequate site assessment before that activity begins. That site assessment will ensure that the utility locations are identified, where the electric cables or telephone lines have passed through, you identify them. Then there should be soil analysis. The soil, the type of soil in that location should be adequately analyzed by competent persons to ensure that the type of protection that is required is the one that is used. So soil analysis is also important. Then identify adjacent structures, the structures that could be affected by the excavation activities, maybe the nearby buildings that could fall. So this should be identified during the site assessment before any excavation begins. Now, the next thing to do is to have an excavation plan and permit to work. Now, the excavation plan should be robust enough. It should contain all the relevant information so that somebody who was not part of the preparation of that plan can pick it up, read it, and understand what is required. So it should have method of protection. That plan should detail the method that is going to be used to protect that trenches. Okay. Now it should also detail the traffic management. How are the trucks that will be coming to take the debris or excavated materials, where they will come in from, and how they will move. So traffic management is also important in excavation plan. Emergency procedures, how you are going to rescue the workers if there is a trench collapse, or if there is a falling, or if something happens during that activity, what is the plan, or what is the procedure for rescue or for emergency rescue? So that should be in place. Then the roles of and responsibility of each person must be fully detailed. Who is responsible for excavating? Who is responsible for inspection? Who is responsible for putting protections? So the roles and responsibilities must be adequately labeled in the excavation plan. Then the excavation permit should be valid, signed by authorized persons, and ensure that it's renewed or changed when required according to the permit to work procedure of that organization. So the other control measures is the administrative control. You should have adequate or good access and egress. Maybe if ladder is the suitable one, or if there has to be steps, or if there has to be excavation, scaffolding access. So you need to arrange proper access, ensure that there is proper access into the excavation and egress as well. Now, the control measures should also stipulate how the spoils are going to be stacked. The excavated materials, when you remove them, where are you going to store them? Which location would they be temporarily before you remove them away from the site? Traffic management and vehicle proximity. How far should the vehicles come close to the excavation? So this should be detailed in your administrative control. The hazardous atmosphere. We should have a control of how to identify this hazardous atmosphere. We should have multiple gas detectors. We should be able to have trainings for the workers. They should be trained on how to use gas detectors, how to enter confined space or excavation. So we should be able to ensure that the environment is safe and that all hazardous substances or hazardous atmosphere are identified before the people are allowed to work there. Then water accumulation control. We should be able to put in place control to remove water from the trench. If it's, in some occasions, they can put a pump inside near the excavation or near the trench so that there will be continuous pumping out of water. So that could be a measure as well. There could also be a measure of ensuring that water doesn't go inside at all. So removing or accumulation of water control is another control measure that should be put in place. Then inspection and monitoring. Inspection should be done by a competent person and somebody who is part of the job, like the supervisor. There's an excavation supervisor, there's an excavation engineer. So the excavation should be inspected regularly, and there should be record of that inspection. So training, the workers should be trained and should be aware of the hazard associated with the activities. They should be trained on how to use relevant PPE provided for them, and all the relevant PPEs should also be provided. Now, according to OSHA, there are 3 major ways that trenches must be protected to prevent a collapse. Okay, they denoted it with 3 S: slope, shore, and shield. So the first slope is that during the excavation, you can slope the walls of that excavation. You slope the walls of that trench so that it's not vertically straight. This will ensure that the collapse or the walls will not collapse easily. Then another one is shoring. Shoring is using support to support the walls of that trench to ensure that it doesn't fall. Then shielding is a way of using bosses to support both sides of the wall and leaving the center very open. So this is 3S, which is the acronym for the how trenches can be protected according to OSHA. Okay, so this is where I round up my discussion, and I'm sure others have one or two things to contribute. So thank you for your time. Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, yes, it's a very nice topic you have dealt with this evening, and I want to talk about. I want to just throw a little bit of light to what you have discussed so far. You know, excavation is very wide, and when you consider this kind of job, you find out that excavation is also connected to many other jobs in engineering. Now, you can when you talk about excavation, you cannot in some cases you end up talking about how to work. You end up discussing uh, 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 some other jobs relating to excavation, because when you do this, carry out this excavation or dig this trench, you find out that unknown to you, you have introduced other hazards, you have introduced other tasks in the job. So it's a topic that's really broad, and if you really want to talk about it, uh, as a matter of fact, you find out that in some sites you see cases of somebody digging a hole, no protective measure in place. Before you know it, people are being buried. You find out in some cases also that during digging an excavation, a building collapsed, or you find out that there was a fire explosion. So this whole issue is something that warrants uh, safety professionals to be very cautious of and be very keen in. Excavation works are very hazardous, like I said. As a matter of fact, in the course of my career, I have done certain excavations that you see, if you really want to talk about, involve so many things. Uh, we were doing with excavation some time ago at the site I worked. Now, this area was an airborne area where helicopters, uh, 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 planes, and the like, they 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 take off from and land in. So, in course of doing this job, I found out that we are no longer talking about excavation. We're now talking about FODs. FODs stand for foreign object debris. What do I mean? After excavation work, you see these spoils, these leftovers that you put on the soil. When choppers, aeroplanes, they are coming, when they are flying, it can be a hazard to their activities. So you see, in the course of doing this job, when we're told that we should not do the job in daytime, understand, because we now may cause a damage to aircraft or damage to a helicopter. So what do we do? Start doing this job at night, and after doing this job every night, we make sure capital letter SUR, we will make sure that we do a cleanup, total cleanup of the site before we vacate the site in every work shift. Try to do our job from 6 p.m. to at least 4 or 5 a.m. the remaining one, which is from 5 to 6, We need to clean up the site. And you see, because people will just look at excavation as something that is light. It's not light. So in excavation, you end up causing, bringing up various hazards. You you doing excavation, taking to a certain level, you have it has resulted to release of hazardous gas, and that hazardous gas vocation to people that are working under the trench. So excavation work is a very critical job that warrants our focus, our attention. So apart from that, you see electrical cables on this ground, what have you, and put a pipe place. Like then, it is important that heavy machinery, such as a what do you call it now, an excavator, maybe you want to excavate a pipe, excavate a crude oil containing pipe, use such equipment to just dig layout. You need to know what and what how that you also have to do a scanning of such areas and make sure that you know exact which merit. We have seen it on LinkedIn. They start digging a location before you know, or a serious high pressure release. So it is very important that this aspect should be talked about. What we do in such case, we carry out what we call probing. We use shovel to probe around such areas. So at the end of the day, after we've located the exact location, then we might now start using our excavator to remove the spoils that are found around those structures. So those are the little things I've got to say. And I really appreciate your topic this evening. It has really made a lot of sense to me. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Monjede. Thank you for always being present, and thank you for your contribution.
I agree to.
Welcome, sir.
I agree to my brother. How far?
Fine.
Okay. Let me make a contribution today because I think today is my first day of making contributions. So I've been an active listener. I even listen when I'm cooking because you always have your program or event whenever I come back. You understand? So that is the reason why I hardly contribute. But on this topic of excavation, it's a vast topic, like you said. I want to talk based on experience because I'm into building. I would do too much excavations, that has to do with deeper feet, especially when we're having a building that will have like two basements. So some of them 12 meters high, some of deep, you understand, some 20. So you can imagine the deep the deepness of our excavation. First of all, there is no part of excavation that is more important than the other, because any part that you miss may result to an incident or accident that may be fatal to the site, that you know the safety personnel, what they mean. So that's the reason why we should always be careful and the process on site. So make sure that they get the necessary permit, because it will help us. I remember one of the days we were doing excavation near Corniche, and then it now happened that we gave our job, to a subcontractor, and they didn't even tell us that they were mobilizing that night. So by the time we had resumed duty, they had already started the excavation, and lo and behold, the one of the Karama line, negligence, and also making sure that before a subcontractor is mobilized on site, that he gets all the necessary permit. In fact, when that happened, even the civil they had no, they knew the implications of whenever we are having excavation, especially in the area of scanning, obtaining the necessary permits, and also obtaining of those that should excavate the we trained, they are trained, and also they are knowledgeable enough to do the activity. Because that is also you as an officer, as a safety personnel, you may be knowledgeable enough, but the person doing the excavation, especially the operator, if he doesn't know what he's doing, definitely it will not be a problem. So he may have his license and other things and the permit and other things, but those incidents happens. You know how investigations and other things and the fine that comes with it. So we should always be careful during mobilization. Again, it's also the management of excavation. One of my projects, after excavation, people need to walk inside after the necessary permit. So it now happened that after my inspection, I just back the area to go to another place for inspection, and people were walking inside. I never knew that the foreman had instructed one bobcat operator to just walk within the area. And lo and behold, one of the stone from the bucket now fell inside the pit. And it was when the medicine guy was placing his hand on a block walk, the stone fell and hit his hand. And at the end of it, his hand was amputated. So thank God for insurance. And in fact, he was paid because the level, the insurance level, because half of his finger was cut. And at the end of it, he was paid 25,000 Qatari. But the trauma and every other thing the labor has been subjected to because of the negligence of the foreman. Thank God that on my side I had the necessary documents and other things. So excavation management is very, very necessary, especially when we have competent people. We must make sure that we have competent people working around and within the area. It is very, very necessary because human agents can also cause that not only excavation collapse. Yes, that can contribute to it, and whenever you mentioned water is very important. Manage installation, especially in one of our places, it's a high-rise building, and you know how deep it is. So once you reach the water table level, water will start coming out, and then beyond water will still come. It needs a proper dewatering company to be able to manage it, making sure that all the water is removed before people go into it. I say, in fact, coronation, the water level is different from that. Like if you're working in Misaid, or maybe industrial in any place, if you're working there, so the water level location matters. That's what we should look out for. And when we are planning, we should be able to also, ask the engineers, the water table, so we'll be able to, make our plans, especially in the monitoring, putting up or the machines that the water, because most times, the person in charge of the site, I mean the watering company, he may slip off, and then the water, the pumping water, the pumping machine, diesel may finish, or this problem may come, then it breaks down, and then the person is not on site to be able to, to monitor it or to call for backup machine. Before you know it, everywhere has, flooded. That is one of the problems we face on, with excavations. So we should look out for that and be able to, work accordingly so that we don't have any problem. So these are one of the things that we face in excavation. And I hope I found my contribution. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Justin. Your contributions are very, very vital, and they are backed up with long experience. So thank you for sharing your experience and your knowledge with us. We really appreciate. Do you have any other person that want to contribute before we call it a day?